are as old or as nostalgic as I am, you have seen the 90s version of The Little Rascals. You know, there's that moment where one of the kids finds $1. He's like, I got $1, I got $1, I got $1, hey, 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 hey. Well, I just found a 20. It's not that cool. It was in my jacket, and there was a purpose for having this 20. I actually thought I'd spent the 20, so the fact that I found it in the jacket, which I haven't used since it was cold enough to have a jacket, pretty excited. Today is not about my good fortune. Today is about Little Monsters by Kara Thomas. Again, if you're as old or as nostalgic as I am, you're probably familiar with the 80s movie Little Monsters with Fred Savage, and I can't remember, I think it's Howie Mandel. Anyways, where the kid discovers the world of the monsters that live under his bed, and then his brother gets kidnapped, and then he has to save his brother before the sun comes up. This is not that movie. This was not the book that the movie was adapted from. This is something completely different. I picked up Little Monsters because I'd read Thomas's other books. I don't really know which one I picked up first. She has The Darkest Corners, and then she has The Cheerleaders. Both kind of follow along this thriller theme that she does. And I found that I really like that genre. I like the mystery and the suspense and trying to figure out who done it. I picked this one up not because I was necessarily super impressed by the other two, but just because I like to give things a chance, and they weren't so bad that I thought this one could be bad. And then it went on sale. The audiobook was like $5. Am I glad I spent the $5 on the audiobook? Not particularly, but I don't know how I would have gotten to this book otherwise, because I got so much going on. The book, as I said, is like a thriller, and it essentially revolves around a missing girl and trying to figure out what happened to her. There are 3 main characters, Casey, Bailey, and Jade. Bailey is the missing girl, Jade is her best friend, and Casey is the new girl to the group. Casey has moved to this town maybe going on a year. She has this dark underlying thread of there's something wrong with me, and whatever is wrong with her is what caused her to leave her mother in New York and come, I think it's Wisconsin, to come live with a father she has never met, a father who didn't even know she existed until it was time for her to leave New York. So she's been with her dad for a while, and honestly, I never really figured out why she was friends with Bailey and Jade, except they were the first ones to reach out to her after she had moved to this town. Her family, she has her dad, her stepmom, Ashley, her half-sister Lauren, who's about 13, and her stepbrother Andrew, who is her age, so 17. Let me veer off a little bit and say I was really impressed with Ashley, because these books, it's so stereotypical to have the mean stepmom. Not necessarily evil, but the stepmom who's like, I don't want you in my family, especially with this mystique surrounding Casey. She would just say, I don't want you around my kids because you're a bad influence, or blah, 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 blah. And while Ashley was initially kind of set up that way, she turned out to be a truly caring stepmother, a caring mother, someone who really viewed Casey as her own. She did have rules and she had expectations, but it was no different than for her own children. And I just thought she, especially because Casey's dad was largely at work. Like, he's a doctor, so he's never home. And so a lot of the child rearing fell to Ashley. And I felt like she just brought Casey in, and any problems Casey may have had with her were because she didn't like rules and expectations. So that is one of the things that really impressed me about that aspect of the book. Over time, I grew to really respect and like Ashley, and I was rooting for her and for everything that was going on in their family. So the deal is, as we know, Casey is the newcomer to this group of friends. As I said, I don't really understand why she's friends with them, largely because she never wants to hang out with them. We eventually learn she just prefers being at home with her family, which is not a bad thing. She had a very volatile relationship with her mother, and so this really is the first time that she's kind of had a nucleic family. So I could see why she'd be like, you know what? I like my stepbrother. I like my half-sister. I want to hang out here. So why doesn't she ever express that to her friends? Is it me as an adult just being able to see that and have that mindset? Or is it hard to say no to your friends? I don't know. In any case, the book opens with Jade and Bailey wanting Casey to come do something with them. And apparently they did not see her message saying, hey, I can't do it. They show up at her house. She realizes, like, I gotta go. I have to go now. Like, I can't get out of it. Only trouble is Lauren has come to her seeking help with her own friend troubles, and then Lauren decides that she wants to come too. This kind of sets things up because there is an urban legend in this town about a family that everybody in the family had been murdered except the mother. The mother had shown up covered in blood on a neighbor's porch, and then she's never seen again, so she is the Red Lady. So there is this urban legend about seeing her everywhere. The group is going to this barn to hold a seance to find the lady. So it's really set up well for this kind of a novel. There's a lot of ambiance and atmosphere of creepiness. Things don't go as planned. They all end up leaving. I don't quite remember what happened, but Casey feels like she needs to atone for her behavior. Her friends are upset with her for some reason, and so there is a party that is happening, and she's like, I gotta go. I gotta show them that I will do things with them and that things can go back to normal. But she ends up falling asleep, and she wakes up the next day, and she realizes her friends never called her, and they never came to get her. The next thing she knows, Jade is saying, hey, is Bailey with you? She's missing. So the rest of the novel is about finding Bailey, figuring out who took her, who may have hurt her, is she dead, is she alive? Something that I thought was really well done was how there's so much misdirect. There were so many times that different characters had suspicion cast on them, and while I knew, because we all know me, I find out the answers beforehand, and actually while I was disappointed in the end, I really liked the build-up. I liked how we were getting closer. You know, it's like the 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of deal, where it's like we're getting closer to who is actually the culprit, but then we kept coming back because it kept suspicion getting cast on someone else. And so I really liked this push and pull about who was it, who done it. People you think you trust, you're like, well, can't trust them anymore. And then to add on to this, we get, and this is probably my favorite part of the novel. I don't know what it is, but I tend to like these little inserts most in books. And I'm like, why couldn't that have been the book itself? But what I'm talking about is Bailey had kept a journal. So the thing about Bailey is we assume she is this sweet girl who she's just kind of the perfect friend. Yeah, she has kind of overbearing, strict parents, and things have happened to her that she doesn't deserve. But through this journal, we learn Bailey is not so sweet. And it's not even because she did a good job at hiding it, but because over time you could see her evolving and her mindset changing, and it's skewing the way she thinks and sees things until eventually it culminates in her disappearance. So if you didn't guess, we're going to spoiler time now. So the deal is, Bailey has a crush on Andrew, and she begins to wonder if maybe he and Casey have a thing. She sees the easy way that they interact with each other, and she starts getting jealous about that. And then basically she convinces herself they are in a relationship and that they may or may not be sleeping together. She starts to resent Casey because of this relationship, real or imagined, but just the relationship that she has with Andrew, friendship that Bailey doesn't, starts to skew the way she feels about Casey. She decides Casey's gotta go. And so she plots to kill Casey, but part of the perfect murder involves an accomplice, involves having somebody who can alibi you, having somebody who can cast doubt. Because if she's here, how could she possibly have been here? Accomplice, you know? She enlists Jade, who is all for it. My pause was because I don't quite understand Jade. I felt like she was underdeveloped for the role that she played. But before I get to that, we're gonna finish the Bailey thing. So, Bailey decides what I need to do is I need to lure Casey somewhere. I need to kill her, and then I'm gonna dispose of her. And, you know, here's all the nuances, all the little ways that it's gonna work. That is where the book started. And that was their plan. They ignored her excuse for not being able to come. They're like, we know if we show up, there's no way she'll say no. So they show up. They did not expect Lauren to be there. And Jade is like, well, let's kill Lauren too. Of course, Bailey's like, I don't think so. So as we know, Casey does not die at the barn. And this is, I just don't quite understand. I guess Jade, because this is all in the end, in one of those really fast and easy recaps. Lauren, who is deathly afraid of this red woman myth, is somehow lured to the barn by, okay, so I think, what was it? I think Lauren? No. Anyways, Lauren gets Andrew's phone, messages Bailey, and has Bailey meet her at the barn. Lauren stabs Bailey, and then Jade disposes of the body. But all of this, Jade has masterminded because Jade is upset that they did not go through with the plan to kill Casey. Lauren is not brainwashed, but like, I guess has a mental breakdown of some sort, and it has to do with the red woman, and so she believes it was the red woman who told her to do this, and so therefore, obviously, she pleads mental defect, and she just goes to a psych ward for her sentencing. And then Jade, I think Jade killed herself. It was just too easy. She had left this note about all of her reasonings, and that is where, you know, we have that fast and easy recap. I really liked the idea that what we thought we knew wasn't really what was truth. That was kind of part of the log line that as I was reading, I wasn't quite seeing. Like, yes, I saw how people weren't really who we thought they were. As constant suspicion is cast, we're like, you know, maybe they really are the killer, or maybe they're not the killer, or so I kind of saw it that way. Let's talk about Jade before I forget. The deal is Lauren, why do I keep wanting to say Lauren? Bailey. Bailey apparently was quite popular, had a bunch of friends, was really outgoing, until Jade shows up. And, you know, this is all, in my opinion, like, supposition. There's really nothing to prove any of this is truth. This is all coming from the mouth of the girl who used to be Bailey's best friend until Jade showed up, and is now her mortal enemy. So is she unreliable? I don't really know, but she's like, Jade entered the picture, and everything changed. She had this influence on Lauren, and it was like she didn't want Lauren to have any other friends, so Lauren gets rid of all her friends. And then there's something about Jade's mother, where I think Jade said that her mom's dead, but her mom's not actually dead, or maybe Jade killed her mom. I don't know. There is this whole thing about Jade's mom I never quite understood. I guess Jade is then threatened by Casey because there's only one room for a friend in Bailey's life, and that person is Jade. And Jade sees how Bailey is wanting to get out of town. She wants to do something with her life, go somewhere, go to a bigger college, and all of this means leaving Jade behind. So not only is she upset that Bailey did not want to go through the plan to kill Casey, which could have cemented their bond, but she's also seen how Bailey wants to leave her behind, so I guess she's just determined to kill Bailey instead. So going into the book, I knew Lauren killed Bailey. And so I had been thinking that the entire book, Lauren's sweet act, was an act. And I was just ready for Lauren to be like, kind of the way Jade felt. Lauren was going to be like, well, they were getting in my way. They didn't respect you. Or maybe, when we're in the barn and Jade and Casey had gone to inspect some noise outside, maybe Bailey had said something or done something that had set Lauren off. And so she turned diabolical. Like, that's what I was expecting. And what I got was Lauren was fragile psychologically. I mean, if you can hear the crickets outside, they're perfect. Because it was such a letdown. And then to be like, well, Jade was really behind it all, it's like a double letdown. Like, I mean, is that new at all? I mean, where's... I just can't. Like, I want to be surprised. I want the killer have been there the whole time and to be misdirecting until the very end, and then it's like, yes, it was me. I mean, what is that? Oh, sorry, my elbow. What, Scream, is it? Where the killer was there all along? I think that's it. Or maybe it was like Scream 3, where we find out it's David Arquette, and we're like, what? I was really hoping for more of a punch, and I didn't get a punch. I got more of a tap on the wrist. And I was like, this is too easy, and we know I don't like easy. What else? Casey. So throughout the book, there is a secret. Something about her that is so horrible that nobody should love her. Honestly, I agree with another reviewer in that it's just teen angst. She is not the only adolescent to lash out at her mother. If you had known me during my teen years, you would have thought I was Satan's spawn too, okay? Like, not in school, but in home, all right? I had dual personality, hands down. So Casey's saying that people just don't really know who I am. They don't know that I'm a monster, that I'm a really terrible person. Like, just because her mother brought guys around who treated both of them badly, and then her mother did not properly parent Casey, and then Casey lashes out, like, that's not abnormal. You don't have a demon inside you. I mean, not that she said she had a demon inside her, but basically, like, there was a monster inside her. No, like, all teenagers, we have hormones. We're so confused. We don't always know how to control our situations. So what do? We lash out. So I thought, again, that was something that was a letdown. And it really wasn't even explicitly stated. And it wasn't really fully explored. All we knew is she had trouble with her mother, and that's why she left New York. And I think there's one incident in particular that was maybe the final straw. I don't know, but I was just like, Casey, back to Bailey's diary entries. Aside from seeing the de-evolution of Bailey's mindset, emotions, psychology, is she also casts suspicion. A lot of it on Casey. And so you're looking at Casey through Bailey's eyes and you're like, nah, I don't like Casey. Bailey's seeing the truth here. And then we get back to Casey because she is the narrator and we're like, none of this is true. Like, I like Casey. And then you get back to Bailey and you're like, Casey, are you an unreliable narrator? And then we get back to Casey and it's like, no, Casey's telling the truth. I just loved how, for me, I went back and forth as to who do I believe? Who do I not believe? Who do I like? Who do I not like? Who do I trust? Who do I not trust? Just by a few simple words. A few simple sentences. It's just crazy how somebody can say something and it can plant doubt. It can plant a thought that changes the way you view something or someone. There's a girl that I went to high school with who, on the surface, was peachy keen. But then I heard some things. And ever since then, I have not been able to get it out of my head. And for some reason, I believed it. And then, this girl ends up marrying someone that I did know, and he was squeaky clean. And so the fact that he married her, I was beyond surprised, because why would someone like him marry someone like her, when in reality, she really could have been just as squeaky clean as him. But because of one or two people passing on a rumor, I was like, that's really who she is. Everything else is a front. I still don't know her. From what I knew of him, I have to trust his judgment. So I just loved how this diary did the same thing for me, where Bailey could say something and make it seem real, and I was on board, like, every single time. It didn't matter how many times I went back and forth. I was like, there we are. Because, a lot of mysteries, a lot of thrillers do that, where we go back and forth, and you're constantly wondering what's the truth. So, yeah, I gotta say, overall, my favorite part of the book was the diary, was the way that we got to see Bailey's transition, and just the way that her views could affect my views, despite whatever Bailey may have said to color my judgment. Casey became less dynamic over the novel. I was really rooting for her at the beginning. I thought she was quite interesting, and part of it was probably because there was that mystery behind why she ended up with her dad, which the mystery ended up being super disappointing for me. But I thought she had a lot more personality in the beginning than at the end, because she tried to become her own Nancy Drew. And I guess I can't really have a problem with her becoming Nancy Drew, because that's the point of the novel, is to get an answer. And we can't necessarily trust the police, so we do have to have somebody looking for an answer. But I just felt like she jumped to conclusions a little too fast. She really didn't find any basis of fact, and that made her annoying to me. And I just wanted to be like, come on, girl, do something believable. There was a point where, as I said, Lauren was communicating with Bailey via Andrew's phone. And so Andrew then becomes a suspect because his alibi turns out to be false, and obviously there are phone records. And so Casey automatically is like, Andrew's the killer. He's your stepbrother. If you have as close of a relationship as you think you do, why aren't you giving him the benefit of the doubt? Granted, when Lauren ends up being the killer, it could just as well have been Andrew. Nobody was safe in this book. But I was just like, Casey, I guess I just expected more from her. Because she was a smart girl. So for her to just leapfrog from suspect to suspect didn't sit well with me. The Red Woman. She is the first plot point, in a sense, in this book. She's the first real part of this novel that draws you in. Not Casey's wishy-washy relationship with her friends, not Lauren's friend troubles, but the Red Woman. And so there's this huge deal, obviously made in the beginning, about the truth of the Red Woman, the mystique behind the Red Woman. We're gonna have a seance too, or a seance. It was really just a ruse to try to kill Casey. But we don't know that yet. So it's like, we're trying to contact the Red Woman, find the truth behind the Red Woman. Is she really living in the woods? Is there really a ghost? And then throughout the novel, she keeps cropping up. This setting of the barn and where her family had been murdered keeps cropping up. But nothing ever comes of it. I was hoping that an adult would eventually step in and be like, none of that ever happened, right? Or this is what finally, she was discovered here, and, this was the end of her life. We get no real resolution about the Red Woman. And for me, that was one thing that kept me going, was because I love a good ghost story. I love something that will scare me and give me nightmares, or potentially give me nightmares, because it's the mystery. I love things that I can figure out. And then we just ended. What about the Red Woman? It was just a subplot thread that was left dangling. Maybe it won't bother other people the way it bothered me, but I was just like, you can't make a huge deal out of the Red Woman and then just leave her hanging. But that's kind of a theme. A theme. I'm making a mess. The next thing you know, I'm going to tip this and it's just going to pour all over me. Good thing I have a straw. But as I was saying, it's kind of a theme. The ending was lackluster because I was expecting something huge. Not, Lauren had a mental breakdown and she was kind of coerced into killing Bailey, and it was really all Jade, and then Jade kills herself in jail and leaves a note explaining everything. I wanted something different. Maybe it's because as a writer, I would do things differently. I don't know, maybe if I were a pure reader, I wouldn't have as many issues. Whatever. Not much could be done now. I wish I could have raved about it a little more. There were definitely really shining moments. And so I'm so glad those were there, because I wished, again, I wish the whole book had been Bailey's diary. Because I thought that story within a story was so much better than the story as a whole. But you can't have everything. Have a great day, good morning, good afternoon, and good night.